Hey, awesome, guys. Matt and Shane and Jim and Perry, thank you so much for playing us into our annual celebration tonight. We really appreciate it. And you guys do have the very best view well, I don't know where everybody is, but y'all's view is amazing. So we're a little jealous. To all of those who have joined in these last few minutes while Masonboro Sound was playing, welcome. Welcome to the Coastal Land Trust annual celebration. We're so glad to have you with us this evening. I'm Stephanie Borrett, Director of Donor Relations. On behalf of the entire staff of the Coastal Land Trust, thanks for joining us. Once again, year number 2, we are super bummed to not be together in person. But if the last 20 months has taught us anything, and I'm hoping it has taught us how to keep each other safe and change plans on a dime. That's not necessarily my favorite thing, but we got to do what we got to do. So since we can't be together, I'd still like to know what you would be doing if we were out at Old Town in person at our annual celebration. Drop me a note in the chat. Let me know. Would you be playing cornhole? Would you be walking underneath the live oaks at Old Town? Or would you be dancing along to the tunes of Masonboro Sound? So If you would like to share what you would be doing at our annual celebration, put that in the chat so that we can all see. Speaking of Old Town, I do want to give a special shout out to Nelson McRae, who was very much looking forward to hosting us this beautiful evening at his beautiful property. But the good news is, talk to Nelson, and y'all go ahead and mark your calendars for next year, September 24th. And God willing and the creek don't rise, we will be meeting to celebrate at Old Town our 30th anniversary. So y'all go ahead and put that on your calendar and be there. Again, please feel free to use the chat to connect with us or other people in the audience. Ask us questions. We'll have some Q&A a little bit later. But if, yeah, feel free to use the chat. And a couple other housekeeping things. We are recording tonight. And there will be links in the chat throughout the evening. If you want to just click on that, it'll open up. You can go visit it later. You don't need to do it now, but we do want to give you some resources as we go along the evening. And right now there are bios of the board nominees and the minutes from 2020 that we'll be approving here in a minute during our business meeting. And we'll keep everyone on mute except for when we want to hear from everybody, which will be a little bit later. And then one last thing. One last business thing. During the meeting, we'll be voting on a couple of things. So we're just going to ask everybody to vote. If you're a yes, just give us a thumbs up. If you're voting no, give us a thumbs down. And if you're abstaining, just kind of put your hand up. I think that'll be a little bit easier for us to kind of visually see instead of trying to mute and unmute everybody. So yes, no, abstain. Okay. So now that the housekeeping stuff is out of the way, I would like to get to the important stuff, which is thanking the businesses and individuals who stepped up once again, and some for the first time, to support the Coastal Land Trust with sponsorships of the annual celebration this year. So I'd like to draw your attention to this slide that Jess put up. Thank you. To our Tidewater sponsors, these are individuals and businesses who made a donation of $1,000 or more to support the Coastal Land Trust right now for the annual celebration. So Coffin Harris Architecture, Kathy and Ken Hines, Jersey Mike's, Cindy and Ronnie McNeil, MCO Transport, Mossy Oak Properties, Land and Farms Realty, Marcus and Taylor, Gibson PLLC, Point Clan LLC, RC Land Design and Maintenance, RMS, Resource Management Service LLC. Thank you very much to our Tidewater sponsors. Y'all are just amazing champions. And to individuals and businesses who made $250 or above contribution to support the Coastal Land Trust annual celebration this evening. Special thanks to Janice and Dave Allen, Melanie Allen, Carol Sue Blueberry Farm, Corbett Industries Inc., ECS Southeast LLP, Tommy Hughes, Susan Stern and David Huffine, Trustee Realty Corporation, John and Susie Lucy, Kyle McIntyre, McKim and Creed, Donna and Tom Moffitt, Skip and Linda Morgan, the Oleander Company, Owens Family Ventures LLC, and Dr. Norm Robinson and the Reverend Hannah Vaughn. Many of you all are with us tonight, and we just really want to give you a big shout out, a big thank you. Everyone give us a muted round of applause for our—
And John and Lee Leidy as well.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, John and Lee Leidy. I apologize. I skipped your name. Apologies. All right, so we're going to jump right into the business portion of our gathering. Leading our business meeting this evening is the newly elected president of the board, Laurie McComas King. Laurie has served as a volunteer with the Coastal Land Trust for many years, especially with the Flytrap Frolic, and more recently on our board of directors. She's the vice president and director of corporate relations at MCO Transport. We're honored that Laurie shares her time and energy with us on the board. Laurie, over to you.
Hey, everybody. Where are you? I'm here at the gates of Old Town, and I thought we were supposed to be here. Hopefully next year. But anyways, we're just sitting out here, want to give a toast to everybody, and you know, glad to at least be able to connect with you all virtually. Getting right into the business meeting portion. First thing I'd like to do is see, we've shared the minutes of the meeting from last year, September 26, 2020. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to review them. So do I have a motion to approve the annual minutes of last year? If so, can you please write it in the chat? And I can't see if it's in there since I'm from my phone. So if someone can just let me know if there's been a motion.
I don't see a motion yet. Somebody go in the chat and make a motion. Hey, we have a motion.
Okay, great. Is there a second to that motion to approve the minutes of last year's meeting?
Allison Tropper seconds.
Okay, great. So all in favor of approving those minutes, can you please give a thumbs up in your camera? And I'm going to give Jessica a chance to count those votes. Anyone opposed to the motion? Please give a thumbs down.
I do see a few people without cameras on, so if you approve or oppose and you want it to be known, please put it in the chat.
All right, anybody abstain? Give a hands up stop sign like this. Okay, I can't, well, let me see. I can't see if these, I'm not able to scroll through, so can someone tell, I'm guessing the motion passed.
Yes,
Aaron, say
unanimously.
all right, so great. Next, I'd like to recognize the following directors whose service is ending this year. Jessica, I think you're going to share the slide with their names on it. I'll just start reading off the names. Melanie Allen, who was the immediate past president. Maggie Ashburn was our immediate past treasurer. Nancy Bray, Sam Cook, Hannah Holt, Robert Perry, who was our past vice president, and LeVay Wallace Singleton. I just want to extend my thanks, sincere gratitude and appreciation for all that you guys have done, for your generosity and commitment to the Land Trust. Your leadership and wisdom has really been an inspiration to me. And I really appreciate having worked so closely with many of you over the last couple of years. So thank you for all that you've done to the Land Trust. And next, I'd like to introduce the nominating committee's slate of nominees for election to the board of directors for their for the next 3-year term. That's Harrison Marks of Winston-Salem, Yoshi Newman of Greenville, Stanley Riggs of Greenville as well, and Robert Wells of Kitty Hawk, who's up for re-election to his second 3-year term. And thank you all for your willingness to be considered. So next, I'd like to see if there is a motion to elect this slate of nominees. Can you please type it into the chat if you make a motion to? Let me see. So moved. Thank you, Camilla. So next, I'd like to see if there's a second to that motion.
Linda Pearsall seconds.
All right. Thank you, Linda and Skip. All right, everybody in favor of approving these nominees for election? Let's give a thumbs up. Anyone opposed? Anybody abstain? Give a stop sign or write it in the chat, please.
I see 1 abstention, no opposed.
Okay, the motion is passes, and welcome to these new board members to the Coastal Land Trust. Look forward to working with you all. Hooray! So this ends the business portion of our meeting tonight. But there's still a lot of celebrating to do. I hope everyone sticks around to enjoy the great music and hopefully enjoying some great weather out here. I would like to introduce a very special guest that we have tonight, Tom Earnhardt, a graduate of Davidson College and UNC School of Law. Tom is an attorney with experience in state government, the corporate arena, private practice, and higher education. Under Governor James Holshouser, he worked with Secretary William Bondurant to protect the New River and to purchase much of the land that is now part of the Cape Lookout National Seashore. In Earnhardt's other life, he has been and continues to be an avid naturalist and advocate for the natural and cultural resources of North Carolina. Specifically, over the past 18 years, Tom has crisscrossed North Carolina, researching, writing, and co-producing the 5-time Emmy-nominated UNC TV series, Exploring North Carolina. In 2013, Tom completed a book of essays on the natural history of North Carolina, Crossroads of the Natural World. This will be coming out in paperback in spring of 2022, so keep a lookout. And most recently, as the COVID pandemic spread in the spring of 2020, Tom wrote a series of 35 photo essays celebrating North Carolina's wild places and things, which ran on Sunday mornings on the opinion page of Capital Broadcasting and WRAL. And the Coastal Land Trust has also posted this series of photo essays on our website. So we'll be sharing a link to that later this evening. Do check it out. I've really enjoyed reading those over the last year. Earnhardt has also received numerous awards for his work with cultural, historical, and natural resources, including the Governor's Award as North Carolina Conservationist of the Year in 1994, Audubon's Honorary Warden Award in 2004, and he received the Order of the Longleaf Pine in 2011. In October of 2016, he received the Flora Caroliniana Award for Habitat Restoration and Protection from UNC Chapel Hill's North Carolina Botanical Garden, which has only been given out 4 times over the last 50 years. Tom lives in Raleigh with his wife, Dana Jennings. Their son, Isaac, is a graduate of Duke's School of Law and is currently clerking on the First Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals. And their daughter, Rachel, is a graduate student at Duke's Nicholas School of the Environment. Tom, thank you for joining us today. I'll pass it over to you. Oh, I think you need to unmute yourself.
Hey,
there you go. You're on.
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
We got you. Thank you.
Good. Laurie, thank you very much. And I wish I was in the same place you were doing the introduction from. It'd be far nicer. I had promised myself back in the spring that I wasn't going to do any more virtual programs. I mean, I was done with virtual programs after a year. And then, of course, we're back in the situation we're in. And there was absolutely no equivocation on my part when I was given the opportunity by Walker to do a small program for the Coastal Land Trust. I'm going to tell you about my heroes in a moment, but I am among my heroes right now on screen. When I look at the people at this meeting tonight, you guys are at the top of the list. And let me tell you who you are included with. You know, we all have sports heroes, the Steph Currys or the Michael Jordans. Some of us think about Bill Friday or maybe a Dick Phillips, who was the dean of the School of Law, a Fourth Circuit judge, and a fabulous naturalist. And another hero that some of you may know is Betsy Bennett. I served on the board of the Museum of Natural Sciences while Betsy built not 1, but 2 new museums in Raleigh over a 20-year period. Just incredible insight and vision. And then there are cultural heroes and heroes that know probably more about the land than I'll ever know, like Dorothy Sproul Redford. Dorothy Redford lives in Terrell County, and she has written about her ancestors who were enslaved workers on the Somerset Plantation on what is now Phelps Lake. Dorothy is one of those people who knows North Carolina better than any of us. There were people that I never met who were in North Carolina and did extraordinary things outside and inside the state. Rachel Carson spent time in North Carolina at Beaufort and at Lake Mattamuskeet before World War II. And of course, you know that she went on to write Silent Spring, and she raised the alarm about the chemical industry and what was happening to the environment, and the fact that we might very well lose a lot of the natural world that we know. And she was criticized for it at the time tremendously. There was B.W. Wells, who I never met, but was one of the great naturalists of the 20th century. He taught at North Carolina State and wrote the book on the natural gardens of North Carolina. And those are the gardens just down the road from you, the Green Swamp and the natural areas in the longleaf pine forest. But going back, and this started way back in college, I fell in love with a group of people who had visited North Carolina, the early naturalists, John and William Bartram. They were in Eastern North Carolina, especially the younger Barton. William traveled all over North Carolina. And then you had Elisha Mitchell, who taught at the University of North Carolina in the first half of the 1800s and explored much of the state. And there was another one that I put him at the top of the list. He was a French naturalist named André Michaux. André Michaux was here in the 1780s and 1790s, basically during the American Revolution and just after. And he came to North Carolina 7 times. He'd been all over the world. He was a Frenchman, but he was on the coast, he was in the mountains. And in August of 1794, he stood on what we now know as Grandfather Mountain. And he looked all around him and wrote in his journal, "From this place, I can see more living things than exist in all of Europe, from the capes of Scandinavia to the shores of southern Greece." And he was correct. He was looking at the biodiversity of the Appalachians, but he had not been on the North Carolina coast. He had not been in a longleaf pine forest or on the Black River or on the Roanoke River, because he would have celebrated the same biodiversity. And that's why when you look at the people that I revere, that's why I'm so excited to be in this virtual room tonight with Camilla Herlevich, who's amazed us all for, 3 decades, and Janice Allen and Lee Leidy and Stephanie Barrett. And then Walekr Golder and I met over 2 decades ago when I was on the board of Audubon. Ann Simpson, who left your board just a while back, and I go way back to the Nature Conservancy. And then there's Linda Pearsall, who has not only been someone that I've gone to forever, she's been a mentor to many of us in the natural world. And then your current board and the people who've just stepped off, Melanie Allen and Laurie King, you are now going to lead the pack. There's Nancy Bray, and then the one person who probably knows more about North Carolina, Stan Riggs. Stan Riggs and I worked in the Ice Ages together, and we've known each other for just literally going back into the late 70s, early 80s. But there can be no one who knows North Carolina better, especially the North Carolina coast. And that's why the Coastal Federation and the Land Trust, the North Carolina the Coastal Land Trust, are so incredibly important to the people of North Carolina and coastal North Carolina. Now, you have preserved between the Virginia border and the South Carolina line, and between I-95 and the Atlantic Ocean, you've now preserved over 80,000 acres. That's an incredible quantity of land. That's just about the same amount of land that North Carolina has in state parks in the same area. So you have preserved privately just an incredible amount of land. And think about the area that I just talked about, from the Atlantic Ocean to I-95, Virginia border to the South Carolina line. When you measure the acreage in those 30, 31, 32 counties, it comes up to the same as Massachusetts and Connecticut combined, or it's 2 New Jerseys. So you guys have a lot of responsibility. 2 states worth of work to do by one organization. These are places of discovery, places of enrichment, places of inspiration that you have protected, cultural and natural areas that will be part of North Carolina's future. And as many of you know, we've talked for a couple of years now in this country about new infrastructure spending. The most important infrastructure that we can rebuild or protect is the natural world and the cultural resources of this state. So when I think about critical infrastructure, I think about the places, those 80,000 acres, that's critical infrastructure. When doing Exploring North Carolina for 18 years, I learned to do something that you do every day, and that is tell a story of a special place. You have to spend time and place with the people who know it best, people who can tell a story, paint a picture in words that will convince others to go along, to follow. And that's what you do every day. My first experience, and I was telling Walker about this the other day, my first experience in the land arena was when I worked with Governor Holshouser. He was a pretty informal guy, and he would often just walk into your office early morning, mid-afternoon. And one morning I'd gotten to the office, put on some coffee, and he came in and said, "You have an extra cup?" And he sat down at the desk and he said, "What do you know about Cape Lookout?" And I had fished there off and on for a number of years. This was 1973. And he said, "We need to buy what remains in private land down there. There's a national seashore pending, but the state has to do its part and buy the lands around the lighthouse, the Corbanks Gun Club, and a number of other lands, find out how much we bought of the private land." And the answer was none. We hadn't done anything yet. It had been passed in 1965. The General Assembly, that was in Congress, General Assembly thought it was a good idea, but it was now 1973, and we still hadn't progressed to actually acquiring the land. And part of my work was to find out who was going to support it. And the first person I went to in the General Assembly was Lieutenant Governor Jimmy Green. And I said, "There's a great thing coming up. There's a national seashore that we're going to establish, and I need for you to help us pass the bill." And he looked at me and he said, "Why would anyone want to go to a sand pile that nobody can reach? It's covered with junk cars. Nobody wants to go out there. Why should we have a national seashore in a place that is uninhabitable?" And all of a sudden I realized that my story and his story didn't match. And I found out very quickly that the folks in the General Assembly, just on both sides of the aisle, really didn't know much about Cape Lookout. No donors, no landowners knew the story of why we wanted to put it in. So I went to Washington to visit with the guy named Roy Taylor, who was a congressman, a North Carolina congressman. And he said, "There's someone you have to meet." And I've invited him over to my office, and it was Pat Noonan, who had founded the Nature Conservancy. And Pat talked about storytelling. And we talked about how to tell the story of a place that we thought was worth saving. How do you tell that story? And you have to answer the who, the why, the what, and the where questions for everybody. And you have to make it appealing to donors, to politicians, and not just the conservation community. But that's what you've done with the Coastal Land Trust now. Since the early 1990s, you've told the story. You've told the story of why these places matter, not just to Eastern North Carolina, but to North Carolina's future. Why places should be critical infrastructure for North Carolina. The poet Mary Oliver probably encapsulated this whole idea of storytelling in basically 3 very short sentences. And she called it her advice for living a life. And she said, pay attention, be astonished, and tell about it. Pay attention, be astonished, and tell about it. And that's what you've done at the Coastal Land Trust every single day and every year, because I know what, when you talk to Linda Pearsall, when you talk to Camilla, when you talk to Walker, when you talk to Stephanie, the excitement comes through. They know the story and they know how to convince others that it's the right thing to do for North Carolina. And for the next few minutes, I'm going to show you some of the places that I have been privileged to visit, that I have been allowed to share with others for the last few years. I got to go out this past year. A lot of these pictures were taken this last year, and I'm going to go to screen share now. A lot of these photographs were taken this last year during the pandemic. And can everybody see the very first image is an egret? Can everyone see the bird on the screen?
Yeah, it looks good, Tom. Thanks.
Okay. Let's see. The first thing I want you to just grasp very quickly, and you all know this, North Carolina is in a sweet spot. We are right in the middle of the East Coast of the United States, and that line that runs in northern Carteret County, that line off the Atlantic Ocean, is the 35th parallel, and that's really the epicenter of the temperate zone. And that means that North Carolina is sort of in the center of where things happen. We have running right up to North Carolina, we have the Gulf Stream from the south, and we have the Labrador Current from the north, and they clash off of Cape Hatteras and Cape Lookout. And that's the reason our coast has shellfish that are primarily northern and primarily southern, game fish and commercial fish that are primarily northern or primarily southern. And that's the reason that our ecosystems are both subtropical, temperate, and subarctic. Several of you, I've tried to make this point a number of times over the years, but this is on Bald Head. This is the northern range for palm trees, the southern part of our coast. And these wonderful palm savannas and palm forest on Bald Head and just a little farther north are unique, and it is subtropical. And not only palm trees, but we have another subtropical critter that really stopped in North Carolina, the alligator. And there are birds that nest as far as North Carolina. They are southern creatures that come up, and this is one of our, they used to nest here and now they've come back up. This is a wood stork, one of the most spectacular birds. This is on a Carolina Bay near Lumberton. And some people are squeamish about spiders, but this is one of my favorites. It's a golden orb weaver, and it's found from the Neuse River south. you do not find these guys north of the Neuse River. They may cross it in a few places, but it is primarily Neuse River south. This is a subtropical spider. And just a couple slides from the mountains, what differentiates the coast? You know, the Piedmont, we get up to a few hundred feet, but then the mountains, we have 43 peaks over 6,000 feet and 150 over 5,000. And you are literally in boreal forest. You go from Wilmington, Bald Head Island, and the plants that you find at Carolina Beach State Park, subtropical all the way to southern Canada, or even Maine. This is the type of ecosystem that you'll find in the far north, that yet it's 4.5 hours from Wilmington. This is a saw-whet owl that breeds in North Carolina, but you find these far, far to the north. But this is the last place that you find them, and this is a natural habitat for them. Not a gray squirrel, but a northern red squirrel found above 5,500 feet. This is what makes North Carolina so spectacular. So let's go back to your land. This is the land of the Coastal Land Trust. Virginia border to South Carolina line, Atlantic Ocean to I-95. Massachusetts and Connecticut. I could start in the ocean and do a lot of comparisons of fish species north and south, but let's go up on the beach. There are things that we all, whether it's it might be a sandpiper, might be terns. They're fairly common. But then on some beaches, we get very excited when we see these guys, the black skimmers, and birds that are not that common anymore. They have to have special beaches, and Audubon and the Land Trust have worked together in places like Utah Island. These are places where these birds will thrive, and where we can continue to see these incredibly special creatures. And these are also places where something else magical happens, where we have the chance to see turtles that will go to the ocean, and some of them will become international travelers and then come back to North Carolina. And we've all seen many of the species of turtles, normally the loggerheads and the green turtles, or the hawksbill. But for years, I used to see the Cape Lookout leatherbacks. I saw many, many leatherbacks. And that's not one that normally nests in North Carolina, but we have to have coastal waters that are receptive to all these turtles and make sure that the habitats are protected. When you see something like this, it looks like a jumble, but I know to Coastal Land Trust, this is what you're in business for. The Atlantic Ocean off to the left. You have I can turn it over to Stan Riggs right now and have him talk about the surf, and then the dune line, and then behind the dunes you've got the maritime forest, and then you've got the marsh. All different ecosystems, and all of them are different communities. But I'm going to, whenever I go to coastal North Carolina, there are things that I look for. And when I go to Bald Head, or when I go to Carolina Beach State Park or Fort Fisher, I'm looking for some of the dense maritime forest. This is one from Bald Head, given away by Palm Tree. But these are places that all of us have the chance to see some of our favorite creatures. Whether it's, this is one that I make at least 2 trips a year just to spend a half day with painted buntings. And just absolutely nothing more spectacular. All of you have seen them. You've probably got them at your homes near Wilmington. But whenever I see these, I just count my lucky stars that I live in North Carolina. But then I count my lucky stars every time I'm on a salt marsh behind the barrier islands. It was in 1971 with my dad when we saw some birds flying. If you'll look at the dunes straight across, there's the back of a dune straight across that salt marsh. This was at Cape Lookout, and we saw what we thought were parakeets, and we told all of our friends we saw parakeets, and of course they were painted buntings on Core Banks. So, but again, the salt marsh is the beginning of life for a lot of creatures, and they change colors, they change completely, they die back in the winter, and the home to countless shellfish and birds, the oyster catcher here, and then on the higher spots you'll have pelicans, and then occasionally you come to a place that is just something that's just out of place. This is in Core Sound. I spent a lot of time at Cape Lookout, and this was up the coast just from Marshallburg, in the marsh behind Core Banks. And a lot of the locals called it Ruth's Chimney. Turned out that Babe Ruth used to play, who played baseball in the 20s, used to hunt on the Outer Banks. And some of the places that he would hunt would be from Marshallburg all the way up to Cedar Island. And these were chimneys of some of the old hunt clubs. And some of them were very small, just a place to get out of the wind for the day, but they built these elaborate fireplaces. And then we have, occasionally you'll see something that reminds us of the wooden boat days, a boat that just got abandoned, a beautiful cedar strip, probably juniper strip boat in the marsh. And then something surprising happens. You go down the canal, and just where it enters a little deeper water, manatees. And on 3 occasions, I've bumped into manatees in North Carolina. This is part of what makes us unique. This area, this temperate zone that is a mix of subtropical and the colder water to the north, but we can have manatee coming all the way to North Carolina. And a place that I love to spend time, and this could be one of several, I go to the Sandhills, I go to Green Swamp, I go to the Croatan Forest. This is just up the road from Supply. This is not actually in the Green Swamp yet, but there's some things that I just can't wait to see each year. You look across, and every one of you know that they look boring from the road, just an endless stand of trees separated by grass. But look a little closer, and you'll see just a huge variety of birds. And this is the red-cockaded woodpecker. And countless stories. All of us could do a day on red-cockaded woodpeckers. But for me, during the year, I love to think about the wildflower changes. There's this whole calendar of wildflowers that start in the spring, go to the fall. This was a couple of weeks ago, blazing star. And the Venus flytraps have turned now. They've gotten just rich red, especially those that are in the sun. And they're in the sphagnum moss. And when you look at this, the amount of plant life and even animal life in that wiregrass is just almost beyond comprehension. And these are things that, again, you know that they're 75, this is a 75-mile radius of Wilmington. And one of the things that has attracted me over and over again, and I take a tripod and lay on my stomach, a small tripod, will be the orchids, the pink grass. And this was last week. This is a fringed, white fringed orchid. Look at them from different angles. Or the yellow fringed orchid. And again, look at them from on high. Or a fringeless yellow orchid. And again, they're probably a dozen different types that go along with our carnivorous plants found there. And then one of my favorites, and this is something that comes out usually from late July all the way through August, and this was still up last week. These are Catesby's lily. And then this was last year. This is something that a lot of us say, oh my gosh, I don't want to ever see one of those. This means that we have a reasonably healthy ecosystem there. This is an incredible animal. And as much time as I've spent outdoors, I've never come close to being bitten by a rattlesnake. They move away if they hear you coming. If you're walking with a walking stick, they won't bother you. I actually saw him moving through the grass, and I tapped the stick in front of him and got him to pose. But this is part of a healthy ecosystem. It does not mean danger. It does not mean it's a terrible place. This means that the ecosystem is largely intact. And just up the road from the Green Swamp, you've got a number of Carolina bays, and I know that you work in Carolina Bay country. You have the chance to see some of the most wonderful rookeries in eastern North Carolina for ibis. No, excuse me. These are great egrets, and then you get to these are the wood storks. And they just fill the treetops. Just absolutely glorious animals. And then in the sky, they really are just stunning. But the place that I probably spend collectively more time is on the rivers of eastern North Carolina. I've met Stan Riggs a dozen times in the last 2 years at the mouth of the Roanoke. We'll go from the Roanoke and we'll go up to the Chuan. This happens to be on the Roanoke. Could be the Tar. This is on the Tar River. And there's some very large tupelo on the Tar. And in these places, you have the chance to see something common. You see, occasionally you'll see, just a variety of turtles. You'll see great blue herons and lots of osprey now. And as all of you know, the osprey now have come back since the 1970s. And we have this incredible array of eagles now. Eagles on all of our eastern rivers, and on our southeastern rivers, and then on some of the Albemarle Peninsula rivers, we have alligators, and then something sometimes very special shows up, a yellow-crowned night heron. This was near Greenville. But the Black River is a favorite, and I'll just tell you just a little bit. All of you who've been on the Black River or crossed it, the oldest trees in Eastern America. And this is a place where it's not just the trees. You've got an incredible array of wildflowers, from spider lilies to on the banks above. This is called a lady lupin or a hairy lupin. Absolutely glorious. And this is the same plant. This is the same plant when it goes to seed. And this is the land of the prothonotary warbler. And you wonder what the prothonotary warbler eats. And they eat caterpillars. And they feed caterpillars to their young. And Audubon tells us that for each warbler chick, it takes 1,000 caterpillars. So when we talk about an ecosystem being complete, you can't just have birds without caterpillars, without the right plants. And that's what the Coastal Land Trust has done in protecting ecosystems, especially when it's a natural ecosystem you're protecting. And this is part of the ecosystem too, a yellow rat snake that has to make a living, as does the Cooper's hawk on the Black River. And then you have a world of owls. I don't know that I've been down there more than a couple of times without seeing usually multiple owls in the trees watching. And then the woodpeckers on the Black River. And there's something new since 2015, and that's this guy. These are the swallow-tailed kites that have shown up on the Black. And by the way, they're now nesting on the Black River and the Cape Fear. This is another bird that sort of defines North Carolina's as a boundary state. But in the last minutes here, I just want to share with you a couple of places that to me are among North Carolina's most special, and it's in your territory. This is the Albemarle Peninsula. This is Phelps Lake in the evening at sunset, but the skies are especially clear because there, as you probably know, this is the darkest sky in North Carolina, all over the Albemarle Peninsula, almost no light pollution. This is the land of bears, it's the land of otters, but it's also a land filled with blackbirds, these winter flocks, these mixed flocked blackbirds, and these are mostly red wings that fly along the side of the road. And then come the birds of winter, a whole slew of ducks, including these are spoonbills among the tundra swans. And then on a really good day, something special happens and you see birds that you haven't seen often. And these are cranes. These are sandhill cranes. And I've seen cranes now in varying numbers for the last 7 or 8 years. And I hope our population's growing. And then tundra swans that come from the Canadian tundra, some of them as far away as Siberia. They come in families. They rest together. They spend the winter together before they fly back. And they fill the skies. If you have not, those of you who live in Wilmington, if you haven't spent an early morning to late evening on one of Lake Mattamuskeet or Pocosin Lakes Refuge, please do so this winter or soon. This is one of the great sights in not just Eastern North Carolina and Eastern America. When you see the ground covered and the sky filled, this is what a couple of my friends have called North Carolina's Yellowstone. And it goes throughout the day and throughout the night. And if you stay just a little bit longer, if you stay into the evening, sometimes you'll get lucky and you'll see a full moon with that really clear sky. And if you watch closely, I told you the birds fly at night. Sometimes the swans will fly under the moon. Some of them will fly over the moon. And some of them will try to land on the moon. There is no place like Eastern North Carolina. This is one of the spots that I visited frequently. This is near your Salmon Creek Site X that you all made possible, looking down the Sound 60 miles from the Atlantic Ocean. But you're still at sea level, and people forget that you can leave the ocean and 50, 60 miles away, you're still at sea level. This is the Albemarle Sound, and this is fresh water. And right behind, you're looking to the east, and look right behind you, and you're looking up a cliff. This is one of the cliffs near Coleraine. And these can be 60, 70, 80 feet sand cliffs that are among the most spectacular features on the North Carolina coast. And this is what it looks like from on top. This is a view in Eastern North Carolina, looking across the Chowan River. And this is what the beach looks like. It's a rocky beach with a lot of fossils and shells. And then you see Stan Riggs' hand pointing to any number of there's variety of shells, of course, and there's plenty of coral indicating that seas have gone up and down, and the North Carolina's coast is among the most static, or dynamic, not static places on Earth. And this is the North Carolina coast. When people usually think of white sandy beaches, this is also sea level. That's what makes it unique. I could take you to the northern Outer Banks, to Jockey's Ridge. I could take you on up to Corolla, to the stumps, but I'm going to just close by taking you just up the road from Edenton, and this is Merchant's Mill Pond. And in Merchant's Mill Pond, you're likely to see turtles. You'll have a mix of northern and southern trees. You still have cypress. You still have tupelo. And among the most beautiful places, this is near the Virginia border, but I told you that North Carolina is that last range, and this is where you have the last gasp. You have the last alligators that I know of, or that I don't know of alligators that appear naturally north of this. North Carolina is a boundary state. It is that sweet spot between Arctic and tropical. And again, you in the land trust have learned to tell the story. You've learned to look at the whole flock and pick out the right bird and tell that bird's story, the one that could reach the moon, because you guys have done it over and over and over again. And it is such a privilege to be with you this evening. Thank you very much.
Tom, thank you for being with us this evening. The privilege is ours, certainly. It's an incredible gift that you have shared your inspiring message of conservation and love of the North Carolina coast. And I'd like to thank you again for the gift that you shared with us throughout the pandemic. Your essays and photo series were such a beacon of hope and light this hard time. And to everyone here tonight, y'all, if you have not yet perused the blog of Tom's essays and photos that he shared with us throughout the pandemic, and I just really recommend, Sydney just dropped a link, click on it, it'll open up, go look at it a little bit later. You will not be sorry. It's pretty awesome. So again, Tom, thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Stephanie.
And your energy with us tonight. Appreciate it. All right, now we could linger here forever because that was just awesome. But we have another inspiring moment to bring you this evening at our annual celebration. And I would like to introduce our new Executive Director, Walekr Golder. Walekr is a native of southeastern North Carolina. He has a deep affinity for the North Carolina coast. I hear he spent a lot of time outdoors as a kid, and he still does these days. Walekr attended graduate school at UNCW and earned a MS in marine biology. Walekr joined our staff this past spring after a long career with the National Audubon Society. And Walekr is going to tell us a little bit about the lands that the Coastal Land Trust has saved so far in 2021.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Stephanie. And thank you all for being here. Before I get started, I just want to say thank you, Tom Earnhardt, for your wonderful words, your beautiful imagery, and just for telling such a wonderful story about the coast. It is always an honor to listen to you talk about the coast with your passion and deep knowledge. And thank you so much for being here today. You know, I wish we were all together on the west bank of the Cape Fear at Old Town. So I want to just give another shout out to Nelson McCrae. Thank you so much for your longtime support, for your commitment to conservation, and for your willingness to host us at Old Town. I can't wait till next year It's going to be a great year, our 30th anniversary. And thank you, Nelson, for agreeing to host us at Old Town again. You know, it's an honor to be here as the new executive director. And one of the best parts of my job is talking about the land that we've saved. So I'm going to tell you about some of the places that are special along the North Carolina coast that were protected this year by the Coastal Land Trust. And then we're going to show you some of those virtually. Before we jump into that, you know, all of the folks who supported your land campaign, you have made such an incredible difference. This campaign helped build a stronger Coastal Land Trust, made this a stronger organization, and more land is being protected because of it. So thank you so much. You know, it's been a super busy year for our hardworking, superb land protection team of Janice Allen and Lee Leidy. They're supported by the finance team of Dave Phillips and Sandy Marshall. They have been busy nonstop. In December, Dr. Stan Riggs and Ann Riggs donated a conservation easement on more than 10 acres along the Tar River. Thank you, Stan and Ann, for your support and your commitment, and thank you for your service on the board. In February, we purchased 355 acres of pine forest in Poquoson and Craven County. The property is adjacent to Croatan National Forest, and it connects to our 568-acre burn preserve, making more than 923 contiguous acres that will forever be protected. And we're already working to restore longleaf pine on the burn preserve. In June, we acquired 1,048 acres in the heart of Dawson Swamp in Brunswick County. If you read our recent newsletter, Janice very accurately referred to this as our Jurassic Park. You never know what you're going to see around every corner. It's a spectacular swamp forest. The swamp forest protects habitat for a great diversity of wildlife, from anadromous fish to birds and rare and threatened mammals. It has old growth forest that appears to have never been cut, and it helps protect water quality along the Cape Fear, and it helps Cape Fear River communities. With this tract, we've now protected more than 15,000 acres along the lower Cape Fear. In July, we acquired Hutaff Island. This was the largest stretch of unprotected barrier island along the North Carolina coast, with 2.5 miles of pristine beach and dunes and more than 1,000 acres of rich, productive salt marsh. It's a haven for nesting sea turtles, and over 130 species of birds occur there. It's also outstanding resource waters, primary nursery area for diverse fisheries, and it's the first line of defense for coastal communities. It's a true treasure of the North Carolina coast. In August, we acquired the last remaining in-holding at Springer's Point on Ocracoke. I am happy to say that the acquisition of Springer's Point has now been completed. This brings the Springer's Point Preserve to 132 acres. It's a beautiful place. If you're on Ocracoke, don't miss it. And we're already working on designing new trails and other amenities for the passive enjoyment of this special place. Earlier this month, we acquired an important property along the Walekr River. It was a 91-acre tract that connects about 3,000 acres that were already acquired and protected by the Coastal Land Trust. And this will help protect the overall integrity of that watershed. On some of the properties owned by the Coastal Land Trust in the Walekr watershed, we're working to restore Atlantic white cedar. And we've already finished one restoration project, and we'll be working on more in the future. With these new acquisitions, which total a little over 2,700 acres, we've protected 14 of the top 40 most special places to protect that we would like to protect along the North Carolina coast. And we have received some very generous support for Reeves Chapel, and the long-awaited restoration of Reeves Chapel will begin next month. This is a landmark for Southern North Carolina, and the northernmost anchor location along the Gullah Geechee corridor. We're really excited to begin the restoration of the chapel, and we look forward to sharing that with you on our website and social media as we go into the future. You know, our work is not over once we protect new land. If it's protected by easement or it will become a new land trust preserve, we must monitor those easements, and we must be good stewards and good managers of the land. And this is no small task, and we couldn't do it without our stellar stewardship team of Melissa Dionasotes, Evan Hill, and of course, Director of Stewardship and Community Conservation, Jessica Blake. I wish we could take you to all these places in person, but since we can't, take a look at some of them virtually. Terrific. Those are such special places. Now it is a great pleasure for me to introduce the Coastal Land Trust's very own Director of Land Protection, Janice Allen. Janice's work speaks for herself. In more than 82,000 acres protected along our coast, she's the best in the business. She's also been recognized for her accomplishments. She was the 2016 recipient of one of North Carolina's highest honors, the Order of the Longleaf Pine. It's an honor conferred by the governor for those who have gone above and beyond the call of duty to make North Carolina a better place. So we're so grateful to have her as part of the Coastal Land Trust team. So Janice is going to introduce some of the lands that we're working to save in the near future. Janice.
Thank you, Walker. I will get this up here. Well, as Walker highlighted and the video showed, the Coastal Land Trust has had an amazing year to date with regards to land conservation. So what can you expect in the coming months? Well, let me give you a sneak peek of the projects that are slated to close by year end or the first part of 2022. Well, North Carolinians got outside and enjoyed local, state, federal parks in record numbers over the last couple of years. And with the demand for parks so high, the Coastal Land Trust response is, let's create more parks. And as one example, we are scheduled to close and purchase 105 acres of land along Bryce's Creek in Craven County by November 1st. This land lies adjacent to 67 acres that we already own, and all of which we plan to transfer to Craven County to become their second nature park of over 170 acres. And Craven County is excited to provide hiking trails and possibly a new canoe kayak landing in this rapidly developing section of New Bern. And we are working with the Outer Banks Conservationists, Inc., another nonprofit group, to purchase a conservation easement over 11 acres that they own in Currituck County. Now, this is a small piece of land, but it's very ecologically significant. It's got maritime forest and estuarine marsh along Currituck Sound, and it buffers the historic Currituck Lighthouse and lies adjacent to Corolla Park and the historic Whalehead Club. And we're working with this same group who is going to donate a conservation easement on their 10-acre historic farm known as the Etheridge Farm on Roanoke Island in Dare County. Now, this farm includes an old farmhouse, windmill, barn, and other structures. They have the group open, or the site open to the public. They give tours and educational programs that highlight farm life on the Outer Banks in the mid-1800s. And this site is near the Fort Raleigh Historic Site and the Waterside Theater. And we are preparing to purchase over 800 acres of floodplain forest along 2 miles of the Chowan River in Keel Creek, in Bertie and Chowan counties. And this is old forest, over 100-year-old floodplain forest that has been recognized as part of the Coleraine Cow Island Swamp Significant Natural Heritage Area. We'll buy this land, transfer it to the state to become part of the Chowan Swamp Game Lands, open to the public for hunting and fishing. And just downstream in Bertie County, we're working with another 5 landowners that are going to sell portions of their land, 495 acres of land along another mile of the Chowan River. Again, we'll buy this land, transfer it to the state to become part of the Chowan Swamp Game Lands. And we're working with the town of Windsor in Bertie County to buy 350 acres along 2 miles of Hoggard's Mill Run, which is a tributary of the Kashai River. And this land has some great wildlife habitat. It's going to help the town mitigate flood damage during storm events. And it's also got some historic value. The oldest mill ponds in the state, and it used to be the Bertie County seat, the original Bertie County seat, with a jail, courthouse, and other buildings, known as the Lost Town of Cashy. We'll buy this land, we'll transfer it to the town to become a new nature and historic park. And as many of you know, the Coastal Land Trust is considered the Lower Cape Fear River a priority waterway for our land conservation work since our inception in 1992. As Walker said, we've conserved over 15,000 acres along the Lower Cape Fear, and we're continuing our work there. In 2022, we are going to buy 272 acres of land along a mile of the Cape Fear River in Bladen County. This mature floodplain forest is got excellent wildlife habitat, including a known colonial waterbird nesting site with wood storks and great egrets. And we know those swallowtail kites are along several of our waterways, but this site has the only documented swallowtail kite nest in North Carolina to date. And as Tom noted, this is a cool bird. This is definitely one of my new favorite birds. I know a lot of people that have been captivated by this amazing bird. This slender raptor has been called the coolest bird on the planet and the most beautiful and graceful of all the birds of prey. Some people believe it is good luck to see one. Well, if you can get good luck by seeing a kite, just imagine the good karma that the Coastal Land Trust is going to get in 2022 when we conserve some of their nesting habitat. Well, your Coastal Land Trust is going to continue to protect important habitat for our native wildlife. We will continue to create new parks and game lands for people to get out and enjoy nature. We're going to continue to enhance our local water quality by preserving floodplain forests, and we will continue to conserve important scenic and historic resources here at the coast. Thank you so much for your support.
Walker, unmute and we'll be able to hear you. There had to be at least one. There's always one.
There is always one, and it's usually me.
Zoom.
I look forward to the day when we don't have to say in a meeting, you're on mute. So thank you, Janice. Thank you so much for giving us a sneak peek. You can see we've got an exciting year ahead, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. You know, our ability to dream big, be ambitious, and protect the lands that are so special along our coast is only possible because of our supporters. So for those of you who are engaged with us directly, thank you so much for your support. Each dollar that we contribute to land acquisition has a 4 times return on that investment in benefits that it brings to the state. That's a pretty good return on your investment. So we are excited about the future. We're excited about our opportunities. There's no time like the present to protect land along the North Carolina coast. As Tom said, our coast is changing. It's dynamic. There are places that we need to protect now. So please join us as a supporter. Our work is critical, and the next few years will be critical. There's a link in the chat where you can find out more. And please consider becoming a sustaining member with a monthly gift of support. It's easy to do. And if you follow that link in the chat, it'll tell you how to do that. You know, the lands we save today not only protect the iconic landscapes and the rich diversity of plants and wildlife and fisheries that we have on our coast, they contribute to a healthy coast overall. And the land we save today is the legacy that we will leave for future generations. So thank you all for your support. Now, as we begin to get towards the end here, I want to say thank you to Masonboro Sound. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being here today. And thank you for being the official band of the Coastal Land Trust. You've played many times for us, and we are looking forward to many more. You guys are terrific. Before we raise our glasses in a toast to the coast, please join me in a round of applause for Stephanie Borrett, our MC. Thank you, Stephanie. And I'd also like to thank the rest of our development team who helped put this program together. Laura Wilson and Beth Steelman are essential members of our team. Sydney Gardner, our newest member of our team, the office administrator, well, she has been the one keeping you informed with information in the chat. And she and Jessica Blake have managed the technical side of today's celebration. Thank you, Sydney and Jessica. To our outgoing board members, you've been terrific. Thank you for your excellent service to the Coastal Land Trust and guiding us during your tenure through a hugely successful capital campaign and through transitions of executive directors. No easy task for sure. So thank you. To our new board members, congratulations. Thank you for your commitment. We look forward to working closely with you during your term on the board. I think you'll find it really exciting. And to the new board executive team, Laurie King is president, Hal Kitchen is vice president, Skip Morgan, vice president secretary, Nick Parker, treasurer, Lee Leidy, assistant treasurer. Thank you for your leadership. You're essential to our success. And every one of our board members helps guide us on our mission. We have the best board in conservation, so thank you all for your service. Before we go, I'd like to thank Linda Murkison. She served as interim director in the transition between Camilla's retirement and me coming on board, and she kept the ship going forward. So thank you, Linda, for guiding the organization through change in leadership. And now I'd like to invite a very, very special person in the audience who was awarded the Order of the Longleaf Pine earlier this year to lead us in the North Carolina State North Carolina State Toast. Sorry about that, Camilla.
That's all right.
And before we do this, just make sure everyone's off of mute so we can say it together.
Is everybody ready?
Ready.
Yes. Do you ever have your gin or whatever drink in hand or ready to toast?
There it is.
The joint?
Okay, here we go. That'll work too, Lori. Here's to the land, the longleaf pine, the summer
And where the sun does
shine, where the weak grow strong, and the strong grow great. Here's to town home, the old North State. Woo! Coastal Land Trust.
Cheers, Coastal Land Trust. Well, thank you, Camilla, for leading us as the newest member of our organization to join the Order of the Longleaf Pine. We are glad to have you with us to do that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for asking me.
It's a pleasure. Awesome. Well, guys, we are winding down the evening. Thank you for being here with us. We really loved seeing all your faces. We're a little bit past the 6:15 that I told you we'd be done, but I did want to say if anyone would like to ask a quick question or say there, we could probably do that for a minute or so. Or if you have a question and you want to put it in the chat, we'll see if we have a minute to answer those before we're going to call Masonboro Sound back up to play us out. So yeah, so I just wanted to open it up. If you have any questions for Tom or Walker or Janice or Jess, we'd love to hear from you. Or if you just want to say hi, because you know ordinarily we'd be hanging out by the band right now. And it's okay if we don't.
Laurie, it looks like you made it home.
I'm not quite home. I'm actually spending the night in Southport tonight.
All right.
So
well, that was a good one.
When you have a sitter, you take advantage.
Right.
I do want to say thank you to Tom, especially for introducing me to the poetry of Wendell Berry in one of his photo essays. That one, The Piece of Wild Things that he refers to, really hit home. So thank you.
I just want to say, I wish I were where Lee Lighty is. She's at the front porch of the Cruise Inn on Ocracoke Island.
I am, and it's lovely. I wish all of you were here.
I do too.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, it would have been cool if you were at Springer's Point too.
I've already been there, and it's beautiful today. It's beautiful every day, but it was particularly beautiful today.
Awesome. And jump in.
Oh, go ahead, Ann.
I just wanted to do a shout out to all of the staff for putting this together. This was really fun, and welcome to the new board members and to our new officers. We're just excited for the next year to roll out, and also thank you to everybody who's leaving. It doesn't seem like it'll be the same without you, but we know you're not going far. So thank you all. It was beautiful.
Yes, and thank you all. I am more happy and honored than you would ever know to join as a board member of this group. I'm maybe a mile down the road from Stan and Ann Riggs, and I feel, you know, I mean, they're just spectacular, outstanding people, and I look forward to getting to know them and all of you much, much better. So I'm so looking forward to seeing you all in person, hopefully sometime soon.
Well, I don't know how many neighbors y'all have between you, but we need to make sure everyone is a member between Yoshi and Stan's house. Okay, so y'all go. That's your first challenge as new board members. Excellent. Well, just one last reminder that if you haven't yet had a chance to pop a donation to us recently, or if you haven't yet become a sustaining member, we would love to have you as a monthly donor to the Coastal Land Trust. That is such an important way for us to know that we have a group of people standing behind us on a monthly basis. But the link is in the chat. You just click on it. It'll walk you through the whole process. And to all of you who already have given an annual donation this year, thank you. You know that we love you so much and couldn't do all this amazing conservation work without you. All right, so without further ado, I will give you one last so long farewell, but stick around. Masonboro Sound is going to unmute themselves and play us one last tune as we wind down our evening. Bye guys, thank you.
All right, I think we're here. Made it back. It's no enough, your door is always open and your path is free to walk. That makes me tend to leave my sleeping bag on up the steps behind your house. And it's snowing out in the shadow, if I forgot words of mine, like the instinct to run upon some mind. That keeps you on the back road by the rivers of my memory, keeps you ever gently on my mind. It's my place to relax and I'll be planted on that rock now that it's behind me. Or something that somebody said, cause they thought we'd been together walking. Smoking that the world will not be cursing or forgiven as I walk along some railroad track and find that keeps me on the back road.
awesome, you guys. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Good night, everybody. Take care.